asking recently, is Trump dying? But over the weekend, people went a step further than that and said, hey, is Trump dead? Because it kind of seems like he might be dead. Now, spoiler alert, he didn't die. And I will also say, it didn't take much for people to believe that he might be dead. The evidence wasn't super compelling, but it did make for a fun weekend on Twitter, which has not had a lot of those over the past couple of years. And so we're gonna run through the rumors and what made people believe that he might be dying, which many of these pieces of evidence, they didn't totally go away. Maybe next weekend will be the one. But anyway, people noticed starting on Friday that Trump had not been seen in public, which I had actually missed. I didn't notice that he hadn't done any televised appearances. He didn't like randomly stop by the cameras or anything. And you might think, well, how could that be enough to make people think that he had died? And you just need to understand, Trump wants attention more than anyone else in the world. That dude loves a camera on him. He is constantly opining on literally everything. And so when he disappears for a few days and when the only messages on social media don't read like authentic Trump messages, like they're not quite as deranged and it makes it seem like maybe it's an intern writing it, that is enough for some people to be concerned. And then he was eventually photographed, but like kind of from far away. So like this photograph came out of him supposedly going to play golf, and we can zoom in a little bit with this. Actually, no, zoom out, that's disgusting. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, he's not looking great in those photos. And so this was enough for thousands and thousands of tweets with the hashtag where is Trump and hashtag Trump died. They got like 1.3 million user engagements or whatever. And then a lot of right wingers, seeming to pick up on the fact that this had become a trend, started to post messages about him and photos of him. And some of the official White House accounts also were posting these photos of him supposedly golfing. But then people noticed that the photos were from weeks ago. And that made people think, well, if he's out golfing, why are they putting up old photos rather than new ones? Does nobody have their iPhone handy? And so anyway, again, the entire thing came really to nothing in the end. He's still alive, I guess. And the announcement that he made earlier today, or was making, it was about moving the Space Command or whatever. Some people thought he was going to announce he was stepping down, which I thought was madness and would never happen. But anyway, Elliot, what do you make of this? Are people too desperate to believe that something is going to happen? What do you think?
I mean, I know I am. I think it was Friday night this was happening, and I was laying in bed. My wife had fallen asleep, and I signed on to Twitter, which is always a mistake anyway. And I saw everything that was trending, and it was, Trump is dead, Trump is dying, where's Trump? And I just took a screenshot of it, but my heart just started pounding. And I looked over, and my wife was sound asleep, and she doesn't like being woken up, but I was like, this is going to be an exception if this ends up being true. And then it was one of those things that always fascinates me online when it's like people almost like accept that it's completely made up, but we all kind of go with it in this sort of like mass hallucination that just sort of like makes us feel good and gives us an opportunity to make really dark jokes for a little bit. So yeah. I felt like it was one of those like really fun moments on Twitter where you kind of feel like there's a sense of camaraderie, even though it is, over a very dark potential thing happening. But I think you're right. I mean, I think maybe a week from now, 2 weeks from now, he doesn't look good. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, to be clear, he doesn't look good right now, but he is still
compared
alive.
To,
He's still kind of moving around. His brain kind of functions. He's maybe mostly dead, to put it in Princess Bride terms, but he is still technically alive. That's it. I only want to mention one other thing about this because look, we've been doing this segment for about a week or whatever, and it's kind of always been tongue in cheek. But that said, I mean, we're covering like, he's had the bruise for a very long time. I didn't make much of the cankles. I don't even know how anyone noticed the cankles as a new thing or whatever, but these are actual medical things. So if you want to speculate based on that, that sort of makes sense. But people now, it's anything is inspiring it. So this video was going around over the weekend of like a window in the White House opening up and stuff being thrown out of it. And like people were wildly speculating what that could mean. And it never made much sense to me that like if something secretive was going on, the least secretive thing is to throw it out a window. So that didn't make sense to me. Now the White House has told the Daily Wire that this was a contractor doing regular maintenance while the president was gone. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, you think about contractors throwing things out a window, but it is the grounds of the White House, so that still seems a little bit strange. But I think we all need to pump the brakes a little bit, because I saw people who had gotten like diagrams, blueprints of the White House, and had worked out that it was the toilet next to the Lincoln bedroom, and they're like, did Donald Trump what? Like, they didn't want to say it, but like, do you think like he blew his bowels out or something? And the way they got rid of it was they put it in a hefty bag and threw it out the window? That's too crazy even for 2025. So we're gonna stay on the beat, but as of right now, he is still alive. Anyway, with that said, let's turn now to a related topic. With Donald Trump's body rapidly decaying before our very eyes, everybody in the MAGA world, whether they want to admit it openly or not, is trying to figure out what comes after Donald Trump. Who's gonna pick up the mantle? And you see names like JD Vance being thrown around, maybe Ron DeSantis, but the Trump boys, they still wanna be in the conversation. And usually when the talk of one of Trump's kids running comes up, people talk about Don Jr. He doesn't have necessarily the charisma of his father, but he's an a-hole, and MAGA seems to like that. But Eric does not want to be ignored either. And so he was being interviewed at a Bitcoin conference, and he was asked whether he would consider running for the White House, and he said he would never rule it out. I'm not saying no, but I'm also not saying yes, which I think is the wrong answer to the question. The answer should be no. No, you're not gonna run, Eric. Come on, dude. Come on. How could you possibly think it's you? Anyway, he says that while his father, this is back in July, while his father would like a family member to run, it would depend on the state of the country. So you asked, could we? And I think the answer is, could somebody in the family? Certainly. I think there's another question, which is, would we? And a long time ago, my father said, he had to answer the same question. And his answer to that question was, if it got so bad that I had no other choice, I would. Maybe the same question can kind of be posed of us. If it got so bad, maybe we would. Which I love, because his father's in charge right now. And so his hypothetical is his father would fail so utterly that he would be required to tap in and run it. So anyway, he says, by the way, that he doesn't want his kids to have the experience he's had. It's tough being in a family where so much negativity is coming towards you because of the terrible things that Donald Trump says and does, but that he totally could do it. And Elliot, I don't think Eric has it. I don't think he has charisma. I don't think he has ideas. I don't think that he can lead a room. I don't know that any of his kids, I don't know that anyone can just pick up what Trump does and do the same thing, but I definitely don't think it's Eric. Do you disagree?
No, I mean, he just has a vacuum of charisma. Like, it's one thing to not have as much charisma as Donald Trump and to have to kind of live in that shadow. But like, Eric Trump is antithetical to the idea of charisma. Like, he is so wholly unlikable that it's almost sort of like insulting that he would even be saying this to people, even on the right. I'm like, y'all, you got to do better than that a little bit. He's also maybe the only person who I've ever heard of who could watch the show Succession and see the character Connor Roy, who is known for having golden spoon or silver spoon in his mouth, and chooses to run for president and be like, that's the character that I'm going to emulate for the rest of my life. So good on him. I mean, it makes perfect sense. He does seem inspired by that character, but good God, help us if this happens.
100%. Yeah, the sense of entitlement and disconnect. But I don't. Do you think Don Jr. maybe?
Yeah. I think Don Jr. will at least attempt it. And I think that he at least knows, I think, all the right talking points. Even in that segment that you just showed, or that passage, Eric Trump just doesn't have it. He's sort of spreading out these sentences in a way where you can tell he's kind of vamping, but he's not even vamping well. Like, it's just sort of, well, you could say could, but also would, and then should. And it's just like, dude, you could just say no, or maybe, or I don't know. Like, you don't really have to do this thing because you're not good at it.
Yeah, what I wonder is, if Don Jr. decides to run, like in 2028 or whatever, would Trump, assuming he's alive, would he endorse him? Like, would he choose him over like JD Vance or something? Would he feel he has to because it's his name?
I feel like he would go with JD Vance, and then this would be a 2032 situation. And that way it would give people time to kind of there's a refractory period. You would forget how terrible Trump was. Maybe it would give, Junior a little bit of time to get more trained and to look older. So that would be my guess. And that also just sounds terrible. None of these options sound good.